Greetings, everyone, and thanks for tuning in for this Paranormal Pit Stop. Tonight, we'll be exploring a historic seafood restaurant located off Union Street in Boston, Massachusetts, that's bounds lay adjacent to the ever-popular Freedom Trail, boasting the title of being one of the oldest operating restaurants in the United States, as well as of being one of the few that's remained in continual operation, and rumored to house a range of resident ghosts and paranormal activity. Are you prepared to brave the history and hauntings of the Union Oyster House? Historically, Union Street would first be plotted and laid out in 1636, just 2 years following the establishment of the Boston Common, and while there are no documents to clarify the exact build date of the structure now holding the Oyster House, it's estimated to have been completed sometime between 1704 and 1714. Predating its transformation into a seafood house, in 1742 the site would act as importer Hope Still Cappen's shop, called At the Sign of the Cornfields, which dealt namely in clothes and dried goods, and at this time the waterfront actually reached right up to the shop, making the receiving of cargo by ship incredibly easy. In 1771, what's considered one of the oldest newspapers in the US, the Massachusetts Spy, would be published under printer Isaiah Thomas from the structure's second floor. Incidentally, in 1775, and preceding the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the Spy would be forced to move its operations away from Boston to avoid British arrest and destruction of its property. In 1775, Cappen's cloth and dry goods operation would host the headquarters of First Paymaster Ebenezer Hancock of the Continental Army, and from within, federal troops would receive their war wages from a pay station. And through the whole of the Revolutionary War, the wives of soldiers would occupy the Cappen House while sewing and mending clothing for the colonists and army. In 1796, Louis Philippe I, who would later act as King of the French from 1830 to 1848, would live in exile on the old structure's second floor, and would earn his wages by teaching French to young women. On August 3rd of 1826, the old site would be sold and reopened as the Atwood and Bacon Oyster House, with its new owners installing its iconic semicircular oyster bar, where some of the most prominent individuals of the era would come for refreshments. Over its massively lengthy existence, the Union Oyster House has welcomed a number of notable names, including the likes of the Kennedy family and American lawyer and statesman Daniel Webster, who, funny as it may be, was known for regularly consuming around 6 plates of oysters. Crazily enough, since its 1826 debut, the Oyster House has only had a total of 3 owners, the most recent of which are Joseph A. Milano Jr. and Mary Ann Milano Picardi, who took over operations in 1970 and continue to manage the joint to this date. Over its lifespan, the Oyster House has been surrounded in a number of stories of the supernatural, with a bulk claiming the premises is haunted by the many spirits of those who loved it in life, and both staff and guests have reported doors that open and close on their own, objects sighted moving by themselves, extreme cold spots, and the feelings of being watched, followed, or even of being touched by a presence unseen. A number of full-bodied apparitions in clothing spanning the eras have been encountered, as have entities in revolutionary garb, and one male manifestation toting a colonial uniform, who's often sighted hunched over tables or desks, is believed to be the specter of Ebenezer Hancock himself, tending his tasks as paymaster from beyond the grave. Across the property, a ghostly young woman in fancy 18th century clothing, suspectedly a student of Louis Philippe, has been spied wandering about, and an apparition matching the description of the king himself has been encountered, often staring from various windows onto the street. Another who cherished the Oyster House in life was former President John F. Kennedy, and following his 1963 assassination, his favorite booth, Table 18, was transformed into a memorial Kennedy booth. Some claim the spirit of JFK himself remains on the property, and his manifestation has been cited numerous times, most often in the dining room and restroom, and sometimes in reflections. One final, more recent haunting is said to stem from the spirit of a former chef named Henry, whose ghost appeared at the Oyster House to work piers on the night of his passing. Henry has been known to cause electronics to malfunction and lights to flicker, and has even interacted with chosen employees at great lengths. Thanks for joining us for this Paranormal Pit Stop. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll catch you all next time.